we've got Lord Timothy Bell with us now. He is the chairman of Chime Communications and advisor to Margaret Thatcher across 3 successful election campaigns. First of all, thank you so much for coming in to talk to us today. You obviously were very close to Margaret Thatcher at the time that she was running. You were running her election campaigns. Did it ever occur to you, or did you ever seriously think about having a televised debate?
We were asked time and time again. Our view was that it was a serious mistake because it's really only the man who's behind who demands a debate. Also, it elevates the position of the third party to a position that it's actually not in. Because the one thing that is clear about these so-called prime ministerial debates is one of the people there will never be prime minister.
Exactly.
So it's a fraud on the public, really. And I think the second reason is that British elections shouldn't be a beauty parade.
Now, even Tony Blair, I think, declined when he was...
He did indeed. Well, he accepted and then declined, and then he accepted and then he declined, but then that's pretty much how he governed.
But he was ahead in the polls, and so he declined when John Major wanted one. Do you think then it was a big mistake of David Cameron to go ahead with it?
I think that it has confused the situation and confused the electorate. We're now getting back to where we were before these debates started, so in the end it doesn't matter.
It won't matter unless the boost that it's given Nick Clegg ends up translating into the polls. Do you think it will? Well,
the reality is that, of course, he's taking votes away from Labour. And actually anybody who takes votes away from Labour is good for the Conservatives. He's not going to get... He could never make a majority government. He'll never be Prime Minister. Even if he does some deal after the end, he won't be Prime Minister. So it's a bit unfair on the public to have this fantasy that this chap could actually be Prime Minister.
Now, a hung parliament is not a scenario that you ever had to face.
I lived through one.
Indeed, indeed. What happens in that situation? I mean, just how much of a beauty parade does that then become?
But it's not really a beauty parade. It's a bartering session, and it depends on what. I mean, I think it's one of the dishonesties of the Liberal Democrats. They ought to be telling the public what they would do afterwards. If you want to have this great new truth and honesty in politics, as they claim, then why don't they say what they would actually do? All last night when I was talking to Lib Dems, they were all making it very clear that they'll do a deal with the Conservatives rather than with Labour, because Labour is... The one clear thing that's happening in this campaign is that Labour is coming a very poor third.
I mean... Looking at Gordon Brown, he actually performed relatively strongly in last night's debate on the economy, but it appears that really whatever he says, no one's listening anymore, and I think that was clear with the way that David Cameron reacted. There's a terrible joke going around the politicos, which is, what does bigot stand for? And the answer is, Brown is going on Thursday. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Do you think that there's any way that if Gordon Brown ends up with the most seats, he can end up being Prime Minister?
I don't think he's going to end up with the most seats, so I don't think the situation will exist. I think the problem is that people aren't really looking at what the end result would be because they don't know what the end result would be. And it's not being debated and discussed properly.
There is an argument that actually winning this election is something of a poisoned chalice. Mervyn King was reported to have said that whoever wins this election won't be electable again for a generation.
Look, I'm sure he's a wonderful governor of the bank. He's a crap politician. I mean, the fact is Margaret Thatcher won an election that everybody said you shouldn't win. She then won 3 more. Or rather 2 more, sorry.
Indeed.
Major one.
She also managed, though, to bring in some fairly unpopular measures, certainly doubling VAT, for example, and actually was able to continue in power. So do you think that, although tough measures have to be taken, if they're handled in the right way, that actually the Tories may end up, if they win this election, they're continuing in power?
I think it's very possible. I think the point about it is, if you're going to do difficult things, you've got to explain them. And you've got to persuade people they're the right thing to do. I don't think the British people are so wet that all they want is handouts. I think they completely understand the situation and are prepared to take their part in it.
Just before we go, Greece apparently is looking for a top PR man to spin its way out of trouble. Any interest?
None at all. One very interesting thing about modern life is, if you've got a problem, you don't worry about what you do, you worry about what you say.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed,
my pleasure.
for joining us today. Thank you.